changed or cameras again, Mayor?
My other equipment's over at the courthouse. We had Vicky out here changed her computer, so we had one just sitting there, so I didn't have to keep breaking down and everything. He
Okay.
took that tower over there and hooked my equipment up to it, so I just left it there, so I don't have to keep breaking it back down.
Gotcha.
Of course, it kind of is a pain when I'm supposed to be doing it over here and then another meeting over there.
Yeah.
He had to take his wife to Nashville for a medical visit at 2, and he thought he would be here, but he also said there was a possibility he wouldn't be.
Okay. Heather said she was traveling, didn't think she would make it either.
Okay. Well, we got a quorum, we gotta have 4, so.
We're supposed to get some of everything going.
Huh?
We're gonna get some of everything going. So, time, you buy?
I will. I will. I will.
You heard it,
All right, it's 5 o'clock on the dot. So, let's get this bad boy off. Hang on just a second. Hang on just a second. All right. Maybe help you let the minutes reflect everyone present tonight. And our minutes were provided to you by email. Hope everyone has had a chance to review those. If there's any corrections or alterations to the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I do have one thing that needs to be changed, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On the last page, should be the last actual paragraph, it starts with Stephen Chambers. There's a sentence that says, "This is from the American Recovery Plan."
Mm-hmm.
I believe what I actually said is the plan may be used for the American Recovery Plan funds. But the money itself or nothing is actually having to do with the American Recovery Plan.
Okay.
There is a grant, but it is the USDA grant that's mentioned a couple sentences later.
Alright, so it should read the plan may be used
Yes, ma'am.
for the American, okay.
Yeah, because when we spend some of the funds, there may be plan requirements, and if the strategic plan has some of the things that can be used, that cover some of the issues that can be funded with American Recovery Plan funds, then that would kind of cover that.
Okay.
I know I said that kind of confusing, but
I think that'd be a big deal to change. We'll get on that for us.
Motion to approve the minutes with the changes noted by the mayor.
We have a motion. Second.
Second.
Martin, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Financial reports.
Hey, Tom, I saw, it looks like water tap sales are down significantly. Is that any kind of trend we're seeing, less construction or something? It's not important, more just curiosity.
Well, when you, it's possible like I think the last year's sales, we had a big development, so many taps in one lump sum.
Okay,
It may reflect that difference,
Is that
this year
what-
might be a little different.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure it fluctuates a lot year to year. I was just curious.
But you got 1, 2, 3 developments looming down the road, so that'll probably pick up if they
Pop up
kick
again.
in, yeah,
Yeah.
hearsay. It
Okay.
may not be in this budget year, but it might be next.
Yeah.
Anything else jump out at you?
motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that you are approved. Water loss.
I don't have that together this month. I had a report I gotta get with Mary Dale about the pool. We hadn't pulled it yet. It slipped me. But I'll update and get it to you.
Tommy, I was looking forward to that.
You are?
One came to me.
It's the only reason we came, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's all right. We put that on hold. We'll go over it again next month. I don't see Evan.
He wasn't gonna be able to make it, but I got an update for you from him. We're waiting on SRF to send us the loan documents to look over, and if we agree to them, to move ahead with the tank project, to look them over, and if we do agree to it, whenever that gets done, it'll be a 4-month lead time. They'll take 4 months to go to get that process, and then you can go start construction, or go to bid. So that's what we're looking at on the tank. We didn't get any, we had 3 people pull the bid documents, but did not provide a bid for the building. We are rebidding, it's already in the paper, it's going to be in the paper this week. We talked to one of the bidders that we knew, and he said he just pulled the documents so late, he didn't have time to pull all his subs together, but he was gonna bid on it, and they're gonna bid on it this next round. We got several more that come in that didn't come last time asking for how to get the documents, so hopefully we'll have a few more than we had last time. But that's coming the 25th before the meeting, the day of the meeting, we'll hold that and have it for that meeting night. I think the mayor may be out of town, I'm not sure,
May 25th.
I think that's right.
Yeah, both Dwight and I'll be out of town. That's the Tennessee County Service Association's legislative conference in Gatlinburg.
Yeah. But you will get a report, you can get a report that night from Evan about the bid documents, what come in, how the totals came in.
Do we need to look at rescheduling this meeting, May meeting? Or is it too later?
Trying to see when you can move it to. You can't move it to Monday because I guess maybe pushing that county commission meeting, and that's gonna be budget night. First budget night anyway.
Yeah.
Week before is the economic development committee meeting at 6 o'clock. I guess we'll still be out of town till the 27th, so. Week before we got committees and everything scheduled every night.
Can we do first week of June?
Yeah, you can do June 1st has a steering committee at 6 o'clock and Mr. Jewell's on that. June 3rd, there's nothing.
June 3rd will be a
You ain't got
Thursday.
nothing to do.
Well, the big topic would only be approving the bid. I mean,
You could
we
carry over
could
to
carry
your-
over that discussion for a month, just have the meeting as normal, just carry over the discussion on the building budget for the next month. I don't know if that matters have to figure on some contingency on that price though, the way prices change so quick.
Right.
But
I doubt they're gonna be able to put a shovel in the dirt that quick.
I guess if you want to do a special call meeting just for that issue,
You can do that.
you can do that on June 1st, and you can hold that at 4:30.
But we can look at doing that at the meeting on the 27th, all right?
The 25th?
25th, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll look
Well,
at
you
that.
need to, for special call meetings, you need to give at least 5 days notice. So you'd have to have it in the Vidette on the 27th. Is that gonna be enough time?
Actually, the week of the 24th, I'm gonna be out of town that week, so I'll have that week's paper done ahead of time. So if you decide to call me, I would not be able to get it in.
Okay.
Well, like
Uh,
you
just
said, we
as-
just do it.
We'll just hold the discussion.
Well, and I'm just speaking for me, obviously I'm not gonna speak for Mr. Jewell here, but if you've got a quorum and you wanna go ahead and decide that issue, you're not gonna hurt my feelings any. I mean, I trust your judgment, and I know you've looked at this, Craig's been looking at this for years now. And I know there was already discussion previously on this.
Yeah, what can that possibly screw up?
I don't say that.
Mr. Jewell can give you, he's here now, he can give you his opinion on that. On May 25th, they had to do a rebid on the building out here, cause no contractors put in for it, and they've got some now that are going to. However, that'll push it to May 25th, and that's, you and I are at the legislative conference.
Right.
I've told them, as far as I'm concerned, they could go ahead, if they got a quorum, and decide the issue. It's not gonna hurt my feelings one way or the other. The other discussion that if they wanted to have a special call meeting, do it on June 1st. However, if we don't decide it tonight and they wait till the 25th, it might not get in the newspaper and give the proper 5-day notice, because Chris is gonna be out of town. And he's gonna have the newspaper put together before the meeting's decided.
Whatever we wanna do, I think probably June 1st would be the best option, but
We're flexible.
I suggest they could do a special call meeting on June 1st and hold it at 4:30. That way you still got an hour and a half before the STEM committee at 6.
And that'd be the only topic we discuss.
Yeah, that'd be the sole topic.
it's whatever y'all think's best. I think, Carrie's coming in, I think. Miss Bays was right behind me, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Whatever, either way. I mean, I don't see that we necessarily, I mean, the bid is the bid. I mean, you know, if certainly on the 25th, if y'all had something that you thought was controversial that you needed to hold up on it, but.
If we schedule the special meeting, do we have, and we approve it on the 25th, do we still have to hold the special meeting?
No, you can cancel.
Just cancel it?
But
We just put the meeting on the books, see how things go on the 25th, if we need to roll it over, we got a calendar spot for
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you can always cancel a meeting.
Let's look at that. Let's look at that.
Excellent idea.
Excellent.
It's a whole lot easier to cancel them than it is to call them.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it.
So, special meeting on the 1st at 4:30, potentially to review bids for the building. Is that the final answer?
That's the final answer.
Okay.
That can be a motion if we agree with that.
You better send us a text.
We gotta get
Craig,
a text. I'll get
You better send us a text that Tuesday.
I will. I'll get that out to everybody. General managers report.
Mrs. Harper's claim was, the insurance settled on it with her in the amount of $1,065 after they reviewed it, so. That's where that, I got that report today.
Say that again, Tom?
Her, claim was settled with, Tennessee Risk Management, for
Okay.
$1,065.
So, it's
She
resolved.
accepted it, yes, and
Excellent.
Time that we,
4:30?
On the 1st,
Oh, you're talking about the special?
4:30.
4:30. 4:30, special.
And we did get the selection committee, the professional service selection approved Evan White, and he did get the document done for GNRC to get all the grant paperwork in for the $50,000 study, or the, infrastructure study grant, so it's in the process. That's all I have, unless y'all have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Tommy? So we're letting him off the hook?
Thank you for finalizing Ms. Harper's name and everything else you did.
You the man, Tom.
All right, I think we have public comments. I don't know who was here first, or who wants to go first. Everybody's pointing to you.
You were here first.
I'm just here listening to you.
Okay.
Only thing I ask is just state your name
My name is Dale Reese. I reside at 345 River Street, Hartsville. About, I don't know, a year ago, maybe a little over that, I had some concerns. I have 3 meters at 345 River Street. Actually, that I won't say that that's the address on the bill, but it all goes to that property. 2 of which are used for livestock only. And I have a copy of the bills. If anyone would like to see them, I have about 10 copies. The first one is the house, residence which I live. The other 2 are agriculture, livestock usage, and
I can share mine.
okay.
Nothing. Okay, I will take that.
So I asked the water department why I was being charged sewage on a usage of livestock. And I was told, well, that's just the way it was written up. So I let it go. And then when I got my new bill, which is the way you present it now, instead of the postcards, I looked at it and it kind of shot out at me. Again, the first one is my house. The second one is goes to the barn. And then the third one goes to another address, which is River Valley Drive, that goes down from the ambulance down that way. And so I didn't feel that, why am I paying sewage on something that is, and again, I've asked this question before, when it's strictly for livestock. And when I brought this up last night, Mayor, you mentioned something about, you called out when this was, something about when it was done. I don't know the exact history of this.
I believe what I was talking about is February of last year, the county, see when, at one point the utility went out on its own. It was not part of the county, it went out and it was a separate utility. And then they brought it back under the county. When they brought it back under the county, they passed an ordinance that gave it certain responsibilities. Well, there were still some questions and it was left a lot of things up to guess. So the county commission went back and amended that ordinance in February of last year and gave the water board sole oversight of any rules or regulations for the water department. There's been a question, and I've talked to the county attorney, and Tommy and I have looking at it, and the board's asked us to kind of do some work on this. When they passed that ordinance and it gave the water utility board the sole oversight as far as regulations and rules for the water department, did that in effect void Title 18 of the ordinances? My argument is yes, it did with the way it was written. However, that's just my opinion. That's not a legal opinion from the county attorney, and he's kind of researching it to give us an idea. In the meantime, the board has asked me, Tommy, and the county attorney to look over Title 18 and look and see what needs to be moved over to our rules and regulations, because it's very in-depth and covers a lot of stuff our rules and regulations don't. But the water board, water utility has still been using it because it was the valid law when it went metro. So, and I think that's where this is coming in. I believe it's probably under section 18-202 subsection 4, where it talks about having to hook up to the sewer, and I think that's probably where the requirement's coming from, is what I can tell under the sewer section of the ordinances.
Okay. Again, 2 things. First of all, it's agriculture. And the second thing, I don't think anybody, I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody that's out there, but I don't see that that's a fair bill. And on the, behind the House bill, you'll notice that I had a leak, and the charge for the water came up to $65.84. And the sewage, of course, it's the same thing. I don't think that's a just way to handle that, especially with no one that's hooked to the sewage. And I don't know who this, I know that Philip Holder, who's out of town, they run all their livestock, in town off of city water. And I'm sure he's probably paying for this, but I couldn't get in touch with Philip. And the only thing that I've tried looking on a website that has to do with municipal technical advisory out of Knoxville, and there's really no statute that deals with this other than what's overcharge and undercharge. But which is Tennessee Code 28-3-302, Part 3. So I'm petitioning, or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. I was told when I came to the water department, I was told that needs to be a new ordinance. The only way it can get changed is a new ordinance, and that needs to start with the county clerk, and that was the reason I was there last night. So I don't think this is a just charge, especially for agriculture. Now, I'm sure there's not many people this involves, but I just don't think it's right.
And we only counted 3.
Pardon me?
3 customers like him.
So is Philip Holder one of those?
He would be one, and then the what was the gentleman up on the wrong one? What was his name?
Turner Farm.
Turner Farms.
Is that where the Dr. Bratton's
Dr.
over?
Bratton's over.
Now he doesn't get charged it because he doesn't meet the code of the ordinance that says you have to have, it has to abut your property, it has to be accessible. He doesn't get charged it because it doesn't meet that requirement. But the line runs down Mr. Reese's property.
That's
much.
correct.
Yeah.
It was put in back
Runs right down
years
the
ago.
middle.
Well,
Pretty much.
it starts about 100 yards from the house.
Yeah.
And then goes back down to the trailer park, or not through it, but down to it. So that's the reason I'm here.
The only other thing I would throw out is you got, and they're not agriculture, but you got folks that, and I don't know who all they are, but we may know of 1 or 2. But there's some people still on the septic system in this town that's paying that bill too because of that same ordinance. They have access, they pay it.
I know Clint Satterfield does.
See, so that
There's several.
that do that. So
This all goes back to when the state started financing and putting in sewers.
Yeah.
All across the state.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was determined that if you had sewer available and you got public water, you paid for a sewer fee. You know, this is something that's been going on probably 50, 60 years. This is not something that just started because we went to a new billing system. And, we've talked about it before. I know we've looked at it before. And, but that's the history. I mean, that's the why. Whether it's fair or not, I guess is in the eye of the beholder. I don't know. Is it fair that we have, different utility rates for different parts of the county? I don't know. You can make a lot of arguments of what's fair and not fair. I can see where if we had someone that was solely agricultural purposes, that we might want to look at exempting the sewer part of it, since they don't have any need for it, not any use for it, and that's why they're not having it. The other token, that's kind of like somebody said once before, that's the price of paying business. If you want public water, that's what you have to do to get it, and that's what you have to pay to get it.
Is to pay a sewer.
Yeah,
To get water.
no one is forcing you to get it, and there are people that would
Well, I
love
don't
to
have any ponds there.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of people that would love to have it at twice that amount to be able to get it, that can't get it. So, I see both sides of the issue. I hate to sound like a fence straddler, but right now, I see the fairness question, but I also see, do you need 3 taps? Can you run a pipe from your house down there, or from one of them to the other 2? Or, I mean, you made the choice to put in these 3 or to have these 3, and I can't believe that it wasn't explained to you at the time, and certainly you've been paying it all these years. I think it makes it
when I
more.
put those lines, or when I bought the property, there was no such, ordinance that had changed because of this other that you spoke about, the reason of when we incorporated. The house property was bought in 1960. The one that's down by the trailers I purchased in the late 70s, around 78. And we certainly wasn't Metro at that time.
So you think
there
this
was no
happened
charge.
because of Metro?
No, it did not, because the code I'm reading, it says 1975.
And
So
if I
what,
remember correctly, this has gone to the state, this has even gone to, Senator Pody worked on a bill for this last year. Did not, I don't believe it passed at the time, and it was to be able to be exempt. But I don't believe it passed last year when he took it to legislation. And I do understand your concern, but we also have to be very cautious with the precedents that we set with this. And how do we deem someone confirmed that they're not using sewer? There's meters that can be placed on that. And I know from personal experience with another utility district. And we had 98% more water going out than we had going through the sewer system, and we were being double billed because that's how that utility district worked. But they forced us to pay out of our pocket to put a meter on there to confirm there was no outgoing. It was just, no ingoing, just outgoing. Is there anything that you've worked with, Tommy, that walks with that? Because I know it was a special, we had to do a.
Personally, I've never seen a meter sewer myself, so I'd have to look into that.
It's not fun. I remember the paperwork was thick with the state, so.
If we have questions, if somebody's in the sewer system, we'll throw down and you can mow and see if it comes out in the line. That's about how we know. We'll throw down and see if we see it coming out.
so you think you're just now being
If you're
charged for
using-
sewer? Is that what you're saying?
I know, I brought this up about a year or 2 ago,
Okay.
something like that, to the water department when I came in, and they said, well, it's just written up that way.
Have we
And
not been
never-
charging sewer with water?
Ever since I've been here and before that.
I mean, I don't know the time we weren't doing this, is all I'm saying. I don't think this is anything that started because we went Metro or started because we.
Like Dwight was saying earlier, most rural development is a people that loan money for projects like we're talking about. So when they loan the town money, they would say, you're going to have to pass this ordinance that says this is what you do. It'll say if you hook up, you have to pay, it's what it says. And that's what they've been living on here for probably since they built the system. Because that's been around a long time. When you borrow that money, they want that just says that it provides that that's gonna pay that loan back, or that's the infrastructure. And in this life cycle, this sewer system, it's got to start over almost, because it's gonna have to be near redone. It's getting about aged out. So you're gonna start that cycle back over again of fixing it and building it and redoing it. So everything has a life cycle. And that's another reason for it, because it comes back around to be redone again. And most every place in the United States has got infrastructure issues, and it's all over the country. And that's what that rate was designed, or that was designed to help do too, just keep it moving, keep it going. A lot of towns are in our situation here with sewer. We know we got issues, we want to fix them.
The rule is, if you have water, if you obtain public water, and your property has access to sewer, whether you're hooked to it or not, you're paying for it.
And that's in your contract when we put in water.
I have to remind myself to read it again, guys. I hate to quote it out. That's something I don't look at all the time. We look it up, I'm sure it does. And if it doesn't
let's look
say-
in that.
We can look to be sure, but I'm just saying, that's been the policy, it's a statewide policy, it's not anything unique to us, is my understanding of it. And I know we've had this conversation before, and I know we've looked at the legalities of it before, but it's been far enough, and I'm old and feeble enough and slept enough that I don't remember the particulars of it. But we can look at those
Also, we
particulars
looked
again.
into, also looked into the fact that we can't track if someone, they might not be using it now, but if they did hook up, how would we ever know? You know,
Right.
if they failed to let us know, it's the reason.
And that's the reason, that's the reason why.
But, you know, I'm not a fan.
When somebody puts in a sewage line, don't they have to report it to the city that they have put in the sewer line?
They're supposed to, but you don't necessarily.
Usually,
They put
if
things in that never tell us, never get building permits,
you catch it,
just appear.
when
Well, that's,
we have to get a building permit before we install any new sewer meter, sewer, or whatever. It has to be a permit. That's how we do business today, and how we've been doing it since I've been here. Now, can somebody go do something after the fact and you never know it? It could happen.
I started that 10 years ago, that no utilities get approved,
And
Tri-County, water, anybody, until there's a building permit on file.
then that solve
So,
the problem?
That,
You talking about somebody putting in a sewer line after the fact?
If you got access to the line, and they did not connect to the sewer at that time, does not mean that they can't come back later. They can.
they could tie on
With
your,
a permit.
they could tie on his physical line,
With a
and you'll
permit
never know.
to do that sewer.
We wouldn't know.
You might never know.
They're supposed to get a
They're
permit,
supposed
but
to.
people do unethical stuff and hook into lines, it happens.
if somebody's got a house over the hill from the road, and you drive by it every day, you don't know there's a house over there. All of a sudden, they put a mobile home in the backyard, and they hooked onto what was an agricultural water source. It's unlikely for that scenario to happen now. It has happened more times than I care to tell you about in the past. We've tried to put those safeguards in place to keep it from happening. And it's just, I think we need to look at it, need to see if we need to, maybe we want to establish nothing but an agricultural water tap and set a rate for that tap. I don't know, maybe that rate for the water needs to be twice what it is now and not charge you for the sewer so you feel better about it. I don't know. I mean, I can see a lot of solutions, a lot of ways to go on this, but that's the why it is the way it is. And I think it's worth us trying to look at, talk to TAUD about it, see what other utilities do in similar circumstances.
And our hands may still be tied even on that if it's a state level regulation on sewer versus water, which I think it might be, right? We haven't discussed
They
that.
are
If
state
it's-
laws.
If there's.
You have to be hooked to it. if
You
it's
know,
a
we
lake.
got into that discussion whether a force main constituted accessibility, and that was what we were basing that on, was that state law that says if it's accessible and you provide city water, public water, then they have to pay for sewer whether they use it or not. So that's what I'm basing it on. I don't remember the exact statute, but I remember reading it, looking at it. I think we can look at it and see if we can
That's all I'm asking.
do something.
I appreciate your time. I won't take
I
any
just
more.
don't know how you got steered. You know, I'd like to know who in the water department sent you to the county commission, and you didn't get a chance to talk to him. or him,
I
or me,
asked
before it got there.
Before I was shared that information, I did ask to speak to Tommy. He was on a Friday, and he was gone out of town.
I was out of town on Friday. He may have tried to contact me, that's true.
We'll be
May
glad.
have, yes, sir, I did.
Yes, I said you may have,
Yeah.
if you say you did, I'm sure you did.
So what,
I appreciate your time, and I'm sure it'll be handled in a fair and equitable way. Thank you very much.
Mr. Reese, I appreciate you coming out.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
we'll do what we can.
I meant to tell you, I did provide y'all in a packet that copy Mr. Scholes provided of that release agreement that some utilities use. I did put our information there for you to review it.
The lawyers have looked at it.
Mr. Scholes, he's developed it for, I think, Valerie Utility District.
We haven't run this by the county attorney.
I just gave it to you for your review, we really didn't. He can look at it, Mr. Baylor got this information.
Oh, okay, he's already received it.
I send him our minutes and all this stuff like I send y'all.
Thank you.
He gets a copy of it. So I can ask him to review it if y'all like, or the mayor could, if that's who needs to.
Well, we rely on TAUD for other legal opinions, and I think they're the ones that drafted the ordinance that restructured the water utility after it came back under the county.
Yeah.
And I looked it over and it looks correct to me. I can't tell you I've written a whole lot of them, but it does seem like it has all the magic language in it.
I guess this goes back, we never did land on a decision if we're actually gonna implement this document with anyone at this point, correct?
No, we were gonna look at the document
Look
and
it
make
over.
a decision, that's my recollection. I'm good with it.
That came back, if we were gonna pay her, I asked that we have some kind of document for her to sign, but she can't take the money and then turn around and file a suit against us or something like that.
I'll be frank, after thinking about all this, I started thinking about myself as a homeowner. And I have lots of homeowner expenses that are just the cost of being a homeowner. Whether it's floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, or sewage backing up. That's just the price of being a homeowner. A renter would be different. I'd throw it on the landlord, whoever owns that property. I personally kind of changed my opinion on accidents happen. And I think that as a homeowner, that's part of doing business. And so for y'all's purposes, I've kind of changed my opinion on handouts when accidents happen. It's not anything we weren't at fault. We didn't go down and bust the lines and the pipes on purpose and it flooded their house. I think, in my opinion, the only way we would want to look at reimbursing a customer for a situation like this is if there was gross negligence on our part.
That's the insurance guy that I discussed with. I think the reason he decided in some ways to help her because the multiple calls that come in, and we did go to the place a couple times. And like I shared with him, when we are given that infinite information that hits at the road, we go out and do what we got to do. And we did it that day that we got that information. It was on a holiday, and the men went out and spent an 8-hour day out there fixing it, and they got it fixed. But that's when we learned that it was our issue. But it's the first time a plumber said to us, it's at this spot right here. And since then, we put in one on another place, and the guy told us the same thing. They had a shovel dug up where it was at. We went on a Sunday to get it fixed because the guy didn't have sewer. Put it in, and it was 25 foot in the yard, not right there. It was up here, and I don't know how the plumber decided that, and that it wasn't a homeowner because he had somebody looking at it. That's where they thought it was, but we run a tape back up halfway up the yard, and it wasn't where it was at. We put the clean out in, and now we got a clean out that we can go look at and tell if it's ours or not. And that's my goal from now on. If we get these complaints, that clean out's going in. It may take a 3-day call dig or an emergency call dig if it's a situation that requires an emergency. But we plan on trying to put those in when we get those kind of calls to try to mitigate this deal a little bit. That's our goal. If a customer tells us we're gonna come out there, they say it's where we found it, this is where it stopped, that's what we do. We'll go out and do it. We'll go out and fix it.
Maybe we can advertise that a little bit better with the customers, Tommy, that if you have a problem, don't even mess with asking your plumber to call the water department. Call the water department yourself, you
And
know?
on another note, we're working with Surfline about adding a sewer onto that
Okay.
policy. They run into a little hiccup. They're trying to get us approved for the same water sewer the same way we have our water, because they had a change in companies and they wanted to do something different. They're trying to fight for us to keep it like it is, and they are trying to work with them to keep our insurance. Our insurance is the same, but they're trying to make sure that we can keep the sewer the same as what we got now. And they're working on that, and I talked to the lady today. When I get an answer, I'll bring all that to you, what the cost will be to add that policy on. And if they're successful, and if it changes, I'll bring you whatever the change is. But, that'll help some, you know, they'll have insurance to fall back on like they do. And we've had people with the water claims, the gentleman that came that night, you know, at the meeting with all the couples, the families, they paid nearly the $10,000, or it is $9,995 on his, so that insurance paid for that man's stuff to be done, so they do pay. And it's been for $60 a year, that ain't bad, so. And we'll see if we can't get that, hopefully get the same kind of deal on the sewer, so. But that's what's held it up. I was hoping to bring that to you even last month, but they've been trying to keep us in that same wheelhouse that
Yeah,
we
that'll
are
be
now.
great service for the customers. to have that
Yes,
option.
yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can. I think the goal of the newer company they got bought out or merged with somebody, and they're one of the new underwriters. And they're trying to convince them that it ain't gonna be that great a cost, I guess, that they think it might be. They're trying to prove that to them right now, because they've had history with it everywhere else, and that's what they're doing now. But they're wanting to move and go in a line where on this $5, like the $5 insurance, they want to move where it not just does water and sewer, it does electricity, it does all things in a home, and it'll be a lot higher now. It ain't gonna be $5. And that may not be a bad thing, but we can look at it if that's something y'all wanna look at.
I wouldn't do anything other than what we.
Yeah, that's what I kinda told them. I said, well,
See,
I kinda like it the way it is, so that's
Water, sewer,
that's why they're fighting to keep the sewer for us.
electricity.
The way it is.
That's taking it a bit too far. I'm gonna ask this, and I should know, I wanna just be sure that I know what I think I know. On our rates, do we have, at one time, I know we had a city, urban, and rural. Do we have
City,
one
rural.
rate?
No. City.
We have two rates.
Two.
We have a city rate
And rural.
and a rural rate. That's what I thought. And the rural rate is higher per gallon or per minimum or both. Both. Okay. The city rate has the sewer added to it.
The sewer rate is the same as the
Separate.
city.
It's the same
Yeah.
as the city.
Okay. If someone has an agricultural water tap in the county, they're not paying sewer, right?
That's correct.
And that rate is higher, correct? How much higher is it?
$27.95 versus.
I'm looking at the rates right here on the county website, and the urban services are what used to be inside town of Hartsville. For the first 2,000 gallons, the minimum is $16.63, and then over 2,000 gallons, it's $5.42 per 1,000 gallons. In the rural, it's the minimum for the 2,000 is $27.94, and over 2,000 gallons, it's $8.73 per 1,000 gallons.
Okay. Where I'm getting at with this, can we charge these agricultural only the rural rates and take the sewer off of it? they're in effect gonna be paying more, but sewer's not showing up on their bill, so they're not gonna know it, they're not gonna complain about it. Is that a fair way to handle this? Since we're billing people with agricultural uses, this in the county, why can't we just do that for these few people that happen to be in the city limits with these? Can we even legally do that? I don't know. But that's my simple solution to this dilemma.
But aren't there only 3 people?
If it's only 3 people, or if somebody else gets one tomorrow.
3 that we know of, there might be someone that has a second tap out they use for the garden or
Let
something
me,
too, so.
let me throw this one situation in. The veterinarian one time called wanting to add a water tap just for his horses or whatever, cattle, whatever. Which we reminded him he didn't want to pay sewer, and that's why he was wanting to do that. But I said that ordinance kind of condemned him to pay it.
The sewer still exists at that fellow's house.
Yes, it
whether
existed at his
the
house.
rate structure is
He
different,
wanted to buy a
still
second
has
tap
sewer.
just for water use only, but we didn't have anything that would allow.
Why,
You don't have anything set up
I
already?
couldn't do it.
right, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
why can we not do that?
Now, y'all have on the books an irrigation meter, which that didn't meet his need either. It would have been pushing the limit of what he was doing. Irrigations for water
Right.
lawns.
I mean, we have cattle, we have water, we have ponds, but there have been times that I had to put troughs and run hose out of my house to water the cattle when it got really, really dry in times past. I didn't put in a separate meter, I just run it off the house. Of course, I'm not paying sewer. But to me, that's the simple thing. If we've already allowing people to have a water meter for agricultural purposes in the county, just carry that into the city if that's what it's being used for. And we're gonna know if they change and use it for something else. I mean, we're gonna know if they put a house there, you know, that they're gonna have to start paying the sewer rates on it. It'll change everything, but, I mean, that's my simple solution. And to me, you wanna argue fairness, Dale? That's what they're paying out here in the counties, that's what you're gonna pay just because your farm happens to be in the city. How can that be unfair?
I think we'd have to ask that question if we're even allowed
I agree.
to deviate from that rule that if you got a sewer, you pay the sewer.
Well, the ordinance says if you have on a property, and it says houses, buildings, or property used for human occupation, employment, recreation, or other purposes. And it says situated within the town of Hartselle and abutting any street, alley, or right of way in which there is located a public sanitary or combined sewer of the town is hereby required at his own expense to install suitable toilet facilities therein and to connect such facilities directly with the public sewer in accordance with the provisions of this chapter within 90 days of official notice to do so. So you couldn't, being out in the general services where there is no sewer, you can't be made to pay sewer because there's not one there.
Right.
Looking at this, I mean, it says you're going to install toilet facilities. Well, you're not going to install a toilet out in the middle of the field.
That's if there's a structure though.
But
Well, it says or other purposes.
Oh, okay.
When you put other purposes in there, you make it apply to just about anything.
But
And I
that would be
think
a
what they-
shop, what it was intended would be a shop or something.
Well, I'm sure that's probably what it was intended, but when you use such broad language, you capture everybody.
Well, I'm just saying.
But I'm just saying, yeah, but if you want, and again, it gets into, is this Title 18 still valid, or was it done away with? But even if you wanted to put some provision in there, whether it's the water board adopting this and changing the language in it, or if it's still valid, the county commission changing the language of it, and put an exception in there for except, I don't want to say verified agricultural land service or something like that, then that could be done, I would think. But again, when you get into utility law, it's very, very complicated as to what the requirements are. And I know it came about because it's the statute requires if you're getting grant funds that you do this to make sure you get money back to pay the grants and all that stuff to make it sustainable going forward. So under that statute, if you're accepting grants, can you exempt out certain properties and not make them pay, or do you have to charge everybody that's going to have the sewer run by their property? And I agree that I don't think it's right either. I've never liked compulsive buying the services. However, I know the reason it's there, and I also know that if a state statute requires it, I can't change that unless I go to the state legislature.
Right.
That's what we gotta find out first, it's the state statute, right?
But
Right.
I think if we could do that, that would be
That would be a method of going about it.
a method of
Yeah.
dealing with it. I don't, you know, if you wanna get into fairness, I don't think it's fair for someone a mile down the road to pay more to water their cows than him because he happens to have a farm in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanna have a farm in the middle of the city, you wanna have water, this is what you gotta pay. You know, like you said, I believe, in one of the meetings, it's the cost of doing business, you know,
It is.
so I see it both ways. I mean, I really see it both ways.
I still would like for us to check our boxes. Let's make sure that the grant assurance, this will not like mess up any, jeopardize any grant assurances or anything. Confirm this 18, which is already current mission. And if we'll look at that contract that people sign currently and compare it to it, because if he signed a contract in the 70s and 80s, we need to make, you know, that's not gonna be able to be pulled properly up, but we need to know what we're advertising today.
Covers.
The current, the
Current covers it.
covers everything, so if it changes, it always is the one you go to.
So, and then come
Now,
back
when we
and,
adjust their bill, if they get their bill adjusted for the leak he had,
We've not
does it
been,
not adjust the sewer part too?
nope, we don't have sewer insurance, so it only does the water. But what we've been doing, when our policy says you have to have $100, that's why it didn't adjust his bill. A water bill of $100, not sewer, water, because we don't have sewer insurance. It only looks at the water. But if anybody's ever went over the $100 limit, we've always, like we always used to, we give them the adjustment of the sewer like we always did.
Okay.
But we've tied it to that policy, doing that, not just anybody getting it. You know, it's gotta be the $100 water, and we'll do you like we've always done. Now, is that written? No, but that's how we've been doing it. That probably ain't written into anything saying we do it that way, but because that policy exists, we just kinda tied that, an old thing we used to do with sewer customers that had a leak, and they proved it didn't go in the sewer, it's outside in the yard, we gave them adjustment.
So we are adjusting sewer bills if it's over $100. If I had $110 water bill, $110 sewer bill, and my adjustment's gonna take it down to $40, you're gonna adjust the water and the sewer.
We'll look at your sewer bill, do an average, and give you an average bill,
Just like they do.
just like they, you know,
So you are adjusting.
Yes.
if it's
that's
above
all.
$100.
but the sewers, but we're not covering it by that, cause there's no
No, it's
sewer,
not
there's
covered
no
by that
sewer,
policy.
there's no sewer policy.
There's no sewer policy, but before we went to this insurance, and that's kind of why we didn't, that's kind of why we didn't look at sewer insurance the first time, cause we were doing that practice there.
I totally agree that if someone has a house and they have sewer available and they want public water, they need to pay for sewer too. I got a problem with them buying water from us and we're, you know, okay, Castaic Springs buys water from us. Are we charging them equal to that with sewer? What's the difference?
Where Castane's at, there is no sewer.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just,
Our lines don't run in front of their property.
If all
let's
continues,
run a line out there.
I love it, Dwight. Let's set them line out
Let's
to
set
my
a
house. I
sewer
would
line.
love to have sewer out there.
with sewer, we couldn't go
I'll
into
take it
another
across the river.
utility district.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of people who'd be glad to pay that to get it.
I would ask you,
Absolutely.
Ms. Bay, if you could follow up with Senator Pody and see if that bill,
I'll be glad
he
to.
was, I guess he introduced, kind of addressed this, and if it failed, then that kind of gives us an idea of where that was
I'll be
going.
glad to.
I thought it was held over to this year was what I was remembering, but I don't remember seeing
It was a caption bill for this year.
I don't, okay, it was a caption bill. That's probably why I didn't notice it. Cause I try to watch the bills
I don't know if he,
closely.
somebody, we could have told him, I forgot
I
about it.
remember it from last year.
He might be able to get tax exemption if he has the ability to get that. He hadn't got it. That would help him some.
He doesn't have acres.
You have to, well, if you can provide us a tax exemption form, you can get your tax off his agriculture.
Well, I hope we can do something to help him and the other two people, you know, I think as we go forward, this is gonna be less and less a problem, because you're gonna have less and less of these large tracts within urban services. Obviously, it's never gonna be sold. Yeah, it's gonna be sold. It's gonna be sold. You may die and it be sold, or somebody comes in and offers you $400 million for it, and you sell it. But this stuff, it ain't gonna be sold. It's for the birds. I moved here, and there was 2 houses I wanted to buy that weren't ever gonna be sold. Within a year after I built my house, they both sold. So I just don't believe that never gonna be sold thing.
Any other board member comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have one.
All right.
I was contacted by Mr. Scott Becht, his family, and he owned the Hartsville Convalescent Center out here across from Michael Town's veterinary service. And there was an issue with the billing this time, and it was just kind of the way the system worked. When we switched over to the new billing system, anybody that had set up an automatic payment was using a debit card, isn't that correct, Tommy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some people would refer to it as a bank draft, but that's not what we would call it. It was an auto pay off their credit card that they could do on the old website that we had.
It got us to.
Yeah, and I think it got, I guess we normally have about 50 shut-offs, and it went up to 130, so there was some that got it, but I guess some people are saying they didn't get noticed, but Tommy's gave me a copy of the back of the bill where it had it on there, and also I'm looking at the water board's website, and it specifically says you need to go under there and re-up your account to get that billing continued over for the automatic withdrawal. But Mr. Beck did call me, and I have a meeting with him tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and he said he may reach out to other board members and discuss with you. He's wanting to kind of address that and some other issues he brought up. So I just want to make you all aware, if you get a call from Mr. Beck, that he may be looking to reach out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the issue was that debit card and credit card payments that were set up on automatic payments did not automatically renew.
Yeah, so we don't store
We
any
don't-
credit
Right,
card
okay.
information.
But
So
I
it didn't automatically transfer to the new system.
That's correct.
if it was a bank draft
It-
on a checking
That we,
account,
that
it
we
did.
initiate, yeah, they were,
that did.
yes.
for the
So strictly on the debit cards and
Oh.
credit cards.
You go online and put your information in.
for a few more months though, they won't be, that service is not available with what they give us right now. They've had to change the way they did it for us because it wasn't gonna work. They've actually developed their own system. In a few months, they'll be able to start doing the auto debit again. It's just not available right now. So there'll be a few months without it.
So we
My
can't,
house
can't even do
don't
it.
draft my bank account, cause obviously I still got water. But the other day, we got a phone call at work, cause the girl at work didn't understand when I told her to have it bank drafted, she was just
You
paying
put it
a
on.
credit card. But we got a phone call and I appreciate it.
And some folks said they got on there and saw they had zero balance, but they was looking at their last month's bill they paid, it still said zero. We didn't load no bills up on the old software, so they wouldn't have seen the new one. And some people called us ahead of time, said, my money ain't come out of the bank, what's wrong? And then we helped them set up on the new one. The ladies helped a lot of people this month get set up on the new system on the phone.
How many do you think this affected?
Probably.
200.
Probably about that many.
About how many?
About
About
200.
200?
Because they have, yeah.
Well,
What was the actual problem though? So their credit card didn't work, did they get shut off or get billed?
They were on the
or-
shut off list.
They were just on the list, and they.
No, they got shut off.
They were shut off.
We don't know who's on auto pay because that's not privy. We set up bank drafts here. We know who's on bank drafts. We send those files to the bank. They fill out forms and they provide their checking information.
And we made phone calls and sent letters, all the
Well-
usual routine before they got cut off.
No,
No, we
did
don't
that.
never notify anybody.
It was on the bill, if they had to re-up, it was on our website, that they had to re-up.
And a lot of people saw the note, called and took care of it. Like I say, the ladies helped a lot of people that noticed their money hadn't come out of their account. They called and said, why hadn't that happened? Because they had it on auto pay. A lot of them called pre to that day. We had a lot of calls like that.
How many are in the situation that didn't get calls, that got cut off, that didn't know? 200? You know, how many did it affect and how many got cut off?
We
Because you're
had-
saying
we had-
some of them saw it and took care of it and
We
y'all
had a-
called them.
We had 175, I think, on shutdown.
Okay, but you would have normally had
We had 60 or so.
50 or 60 anyway, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 100, 110 people probably that, has it all been resolved?
Yes.
All those, you've got it set up or they've paid you some other way?
Yeah.
Okay, are there any of them other than Mr. Beck that's
He's the only one that I know.
really upset about it? And I'm sure he is because his bill's so high. I mean, he's got a big bill and he's got people out there and he's gotta have water. I understand why he's topping cotton, so to speak.
We didn't turn off no nursing home now. It's his personal properties that he got.
Oh, okay.
Now, the other comment that he wants to talk to the mayor about, when I first come here, he come to me about the same issue. And I looked at he's got 3 services to the nursing home. And he thought he wasn't getting billed correctly, so I looked at all of them, and I couldn't see nothing wrong with the billing or the meter reads were good. I think he said he had issues where he might have this real high bill and then it'd go fix itself, and what I told him at the time, what I remember, that's been almost 3 years ago, he has multiple commodes in his facility. Any one of them that caused that problem, we can't tell you what it does it, but you know, there was nothing I could find inconsistent about any meter reads. I looked at all 3 accounts, went through them at the time, met him here, he come to the office to talk to him. He didn't like what I told him, but I hadn't seen him since, so, about that same issue.
Well, an institution like that, somebody fixing to mop the floor, goes in there and turns the mop water sink on for the hot water to get good and hot, and goes out here and gets distracted. 6 hours later, find the water running wide open. I mean, things like that happen. I mean, that's the nature of his beast. I mean, unless he wants to put water alarms on every sink and every commode in there, he's gonna have to realize that
It's a constant doing business.
the cost of it. I love you.
Suck it up. Charge more.
Their fees, and there would not change to charge any late fees or reconnect, I mean, anything like that, really.
We took the $45 off those.
That's fair.
That's fair, yeah.
And if we miss somebody, if they hear this meeting and watch this meeting, I will fix it. If we miss somebody.
Well, I don't know if you could do much more.
And we got them on as promptly as we could, so.
Thank you.
You're the man, aren't you?
I think that was,
I don't think we'll have a reoccurrence of this, because we've probably got them all this month, hopefully.
well, we need to thank Tommy. We also need to thank those girls out there on the
Oh, bless their heart.
Honey, they've been following her every day. Because
I had one of them say, that's been here 30 years. She said, I ain't had a day like this in 30 years. It was a pretty hectic day.
I came in and don't you start.
I don't have anything.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to always be one.
We need somebody second, though.
Second.
Third,
Alright,
Mike,
Can we go just go for a checkup with that?
Mike.